sometimes you don't realize you're getting your ass beat, but sometimes you do realize it and you feel like there's nothing you can do, and you need someone who can have some grace and encourage you. Welcome to the Badass Dad podcast. KDH here on the microphone. Yes, we are in the Iron Yeti studios in 2021 with my good friend Stephen DeSchryver. Stephen, how you feeling?
Great, Kevin. How are you, man?
It's good, man. It's good to have you on this side of the microphone, on this side of the camera.
You see, you say that, but I'm not comfortable. I'd much rather be on the other side.
Yeah. Well, there is our world, our foundation is like shaking in front of us. And, we got so many things going on. I mean, we have the inauguration coming up, here in a couple of days, and, this will drop after that. And it is crazy, just the world that we're living in right now. And who would have thought, 10 months ago that this little Corona thing would continue on, but it is, and it's affecting, school, business, health. I mean, all sorts of areas. And yet here we are, we're still out here doing it, and life just marches on.
I remember when they said 2 weeks to slow the spread. I was like, sweet, spring break gets extended. I was super stoked. And then now here we are almost a year later.
Yeah.
And we're back in schools and we're at like 50% capacity. So we're like almost platooning kids in and out.
Yeah.
So you might only see a teacher like once a week, which it's not good for kids. In my humble opinion, it's not good for kids.
Right.
I'm seeing huge drops in learning, attention. We had kids in class for the first time this week in second semester. And the last like 15 minutes of class, I was like, just talk to each other in person,
right.
not over Zoom. And I think it was the most cathartic thing we could have done.
Wow.
It was great.
Yeah. Well, we will definitely, we'll definitely do another episode on that as well. But, I text you earlier because, we have, from the beginning, we've talked about Badass Dads being a band of brothers committed to forging stronger fathers. And, fatherhood takes, there are so many facets to it, and whether that's someone, I'm thinking about, Aaron and Benta Clark, having their little baby girl, they just adopted, this last year. So they're still in the diaper phase of things. And then I'm thinking about some of my other buddies, Micah Richardson, whose daughter went off to Annapolis this last year. And so, they're empty nest for the first time, and, so many different things. And so the broad spectrum, you got friends who's, having grandbabies, and, or like me, I got a teenager, and, my little guy's turning 10 tomorrow. And so, in the midst of it, and yet it reminds me of the importance of having the band of brothers, and I text you about friends and why, I wanted us to talk about the importance of friends and, having a cornerman, and, when life throws us, that curveball, what do we do and how do we handle it? And, and I guess the real thing that I wanted to get to on this is, what do we do when we have someone who's in our group, who's one of our boys, that's part of our band of brothers, and maybe they're going through a tough time. We've talked to guys that are going through a divorce, or coming out of a divorce, or, whatever. There's, a moment of crisis, and, our responsibility to step up as a cornerman, and what that can look like. And what does it mean to be a real friend when you see someone maybe taking a step that you're not sure it's the right step?
No, I think that's a tough one too, because what does it mean to be a friend? Like, honestly, like let's break this down into, being a cornerman. But before you get to that cornerman, what does it truly mean to be a friend? And I think it's defined by being that mirror for somebody, because we honestly don't know how the world perceives us. The old quote, I'm not who I am. I'm not who you think I am. I am who you think I am, who I think you think I am. Okay. Right? Yeah. Exactly. Sorry about that. But, so we need that mirror. We need that guide in our life to kind of let us know, like who we are, and I think you are defined by this circle of people you surround yourself with. We talk to our kids all the time that, you are the average of the 10 people you hang out with the most. Mm-hmm. So if you hang out with high achieving people, that's who you are. And the opposite is true. But I think more importantly, especially in times of crisis, I think a friend is somebody who's willing to tell you the truth. Even if it means, and someone else said this, even if it means risking that friendship.
Yeah. Well, and in addition to that, little improv there. Yes. And, a friend is someone who you feel is on your side. Pretty simply on your side. And to be on your side, I'm thinking about a couple of my boys and, have gone through some tough situations or in the midst of some tough situations. And, like if we were using you and Stacy, I can be on your side and, I can be on her side too. I can be on y'all's side. But when I'm with you, if you came to me and you said, hey, Kev, man, can we go have a beer? Can we talk? Can we hang out? And do you mind, because this is literally a conversation I had with one of my buddies, and he said, do you mind if we just talk about me for right now, not talk about my spouse, and let's not talk about Stacey, let's not talk about the kids or anything else, and really just to be able to let you know that I'm on your side. And it's interesting, when we go back all the way, I don't remember which episode it was, but when we had Darius talk about truth and grace, there's a time for a friend to be the truth teller. And I'd love for you to tell the story about Jeff here in just a minute, okay? If you don't mind. And so, to be able to tell the truth where someone in your corner man is going to be able to say, hey, listen, you're not seeing the left hook. Get your right hand up and protect your head, okay? Whereas, as Andrew told me, you got to, protect your shit, man. Keep your hand up because that hook's going to crush you. And it takes a corner man to be able to be there to see the strikes that you're not seeing there. And at the same time, you also need a corner man who has some grace for you because, sometimes you don't realize you're getting your ass beat, but sometimes you do realize it and you feel like there's nothing you can do and you need someone who can have some grace and encourage you. So let's talk for just a minute, just about, being a truth teller. And I think for some guys that's easy to do, but for some guys they're so concerned about the relationship that they don't tell the truth. But I know there was a benefit for you at one time.
No, absolutely. So,
and I put you on the spot. I know.
I know. We're going to bring up my history here. So I was involved in a relationship with someone, and it was great from my perspective. Everything was awesome, and it was great, and we were, the whole bit. And it took my buddy Jeff, who is an encourager. He is the guy who's going to go have a beer with you and be like, oh, you didn't get the job, or, oh, this didn't work out for you. And, just a couple more steps, you just got to keep going. Cause we need that person in our lives to, if anything, just to point us a little bit further down the road so we don't get stuck in this despair. Right. Mm. And I think with COVID, I think we're going to run into that more. I have a buddy of mine right now who has COVID. I haven't seen him in like 6 months, and he's all alone in his house by himself. I'm worried about him. And there's only so many Zoom calls and FaceTimes and things like that you can do. But getting back to Jeff, so I was in this relationship, and my buddy Jeff, best friend, comes to me, and it was maybe a year into it, and he sits me down, and I've known this guy. I've now known him longer than I've not known him, kind of a guy, okay. Right?
Yeah.
He sits me down, and he's like, Steve, I appreciate you, man. I love you. I know you better than you probably know yourself, and I'm just giving you an outsider's perspective. You're with this person, and if you choose to get married and go down that path, I will be there. I'll be your best man at the wedding. I will buy you your first gift. I'll be there at the first, when your kids are born, and I will support you all the way. But you have to know that she's not good for you. This is not the right person for you. I'm not, you take that how you want it, and I'm willing to put myself out there right now to let you know that I'm seeing something that you're not seeing. And in the moment, I wasn't angry, but I wasn't happy either. I just kind of took it and like, okay, and then I had to process that because I had to be ready to receive that information.
Right. Yep.
And what does that mean? What am I missing? Because then all of a sudden I feel inadequate that I didn't see this, but other people did. And then, slowly but surely I started noticing different things, and sure enough, like it just wasn't, and she's a great person. That's awesome. It wasn't for us, kind of a thing. But it took Jeff to get to that point to tell me the truth, regardless of what it would do to our, relationship, where, I'm forever grateful for him to do that. But it wasn't easy. It really wasn't easy.
How was it? I mean, I don't know if you guys ever talked about it again, but how do you think it was for Jeff? Because it doesn't sound like that's just his natural bent. He's not just a total truth teller, just come and like point the finger at you and look how you're screwing up, and because there are I got some friends that are like that for sure. Love to point out my flaws,
Well, he's an attorney. So,
so he put you on trial.
He did. And he made a very compelling argument too. Okay. I mean, he's one of the best.
Yeah.
But I think we very like briefly talked on it, touched on it here and there, but we never really brought it up again. But for him, I'm assuming it was easy. He came at it from a very logical argument. And I think I would like to know, I'm going to call him.
Okay.
I'd like to know what his breaking point was.
Yeah.
At what point did he say, Steve's not going to be able to do this on his own. He needs somebody to step in for him.
Yeah.
Like we'll get him on the podcast.
That would be good. That'd be so good. Because I used to do a training with salespeople where we would talk about the difference between being aggressive on one end, passive on the other end, and then being assertive in the middle. And, I think that there are some guys very naturally, they get very aggressive and they're like, what are you doing? You're effing up, and they're literally just going to come at you so hard. And then, if you attack me, my natural response will be defend. Okay. I'm going to defend. And so what am I going to do? I'm going to defend this person. So that is probably not the best strategy. If we see one of our boys stepping out of line or doing something that we just go, man, it just doesn't feel right, But if we come aggressively with them, they may defend.
They'll respond in kind.
Yeah, exactly.
You're right.
And if we're too passive, then what we have the possibility to have is in the pain of regret.
Oh, and you're just enabling at that point, right?
Yeah.
Because if I just sit back and do nothing, that is a decision. You are making a decision, and I don't know how I was going to say live with yourself, but that's not the right, phrase to use. But you have to own some of those things as well. If you sit there and do nothing, you're just as guilty. If you truly believe in your heart that you need to step in and do something and you sit back, that's on you.
Well, it also determines what kind of friend do you want to be and what kind of friends do you want to have around you? Do you want to have friends that are loyal and are committed? And, it's so funny because in the back of my mind, I'm hearing a great mentor of mine, Mark Marchesani, say this, he goes, your business is your business until your business affects my business. Okay. But at the same time, I'm going, am I my brother's keeper? If I see you about to step on a landmine, okay, if I have walked across, this landmine field that is covered in snow and I have somehow successfully made it to the other side and I see you about to take a step that is a landmine, do I not bear a responsibility to say something?
Oh, yeah, I think you absolutely do. And was it Greg Gunn? Somebody brought up the river example of going down the river and there's rocks and things like that. That's that I think your responsibility is to point out the rocks to help your friends out. If you're a friend,
yep.
If you're not a friend, hit the rock, bud.
Yeah. Well, I remember giving this other analogy, and I've used it with my boys a couple of times. It's a little bit of an ethical dilemma that that I put them in, but basically it goes like this. So you can just imagine you and I and Stacy are out in a boat, and we're out in the middle of the water out there, and we get away from the land, so we can't even see the land anymore. And we're all friends, whatever, and Stacy leans over and says to me, she goes, Kev, I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, but I don't even know how to swim. And I go, wait, come on, Stacy, like you got to know how to swim. She goes, no, I really don't know how to swim. And then all of a sudden I decide, I throw her in the water, and then she's out there and she's about to drown. And you have a life preserver and you're standing on the side of the boat and you could throw her the life preserver. And so you have it in your hand and you're about to throw it, but then you go, I don't know. I don't know if this is really my responsibility. I don't know if I should throw it to her or not. I don't know what she would think about this. And then she drowns. So then the question is, whose fault is it she drowned? Now, we could say she should have learned to swim. Okay. She could say, I shouldn't have thrown her in the water. But if we aren't one of those two people, if we're the third person that has a life preserver and we choose not to throw the life preserver to them, are bad.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we do throw the life preserver to them and Stacy goes, Stephen, that's not my color. That's not the color life preserver I like. I don't like round donut shaped things. I'm cutting my carbs right now. I cannot take that. And she drowns. That's her fault, right?
I think you have the answer to your question. You throw the life preserver.
You throw the life preserver.
You got to help your friends out.
Our responsibility as badass dads, as cornermen, as a band of brothers, is to throw the life preserver out there. The hard part is sometimes people don't know that they're drowning or that there's that potential.
And you might not know that you actually have a life preserver to throw. You might think, well, it's just this foam thing. I don't know what it does. And, your piece of advice you might be sitting on, you're like, it might help, it might not help. Is it worth it? She might yell at me if I throw it at her. Like, that's tough.
Yeah. All right. So I got one more for you. This is, when I've been faced with, similar situations, whether it's relational. I mean, I've had this with business. I've had this with, a couple guys, came to me with some health concerns, different things, financial. And I've started with this when people come, because sometimes people will come and they'll go, hey, I really want your advice. Okay, I really want your advice on something. And this was given to me, so this wasn't something I came up with, but I learned to start asking this question, which is, so Stephen, let me just make sure, do you really want my advice? Like, you want me to tell you how I think about this? Or have you already made up your mind? You just want approval for what you've already done?
We see it all the time. And, and because we want to feel better about the decision we're making. We really want advice, but it's definitely more of the approval piece.
Yeah. And that is such a hard one, because I've had this happen. I've even had that set up where I've said, hey, Stephen, do you want my advice or you want my approval? And you go, no, okay, I want your advice. Okay. And then I give you my advice, and whether you act on that or not, that's not my responsibility. Okay. And to be honest, it's not going to hurt I'm really not one of the guys that's going to come back and say, oh, didn't take my advice. Screw you, man. Okay. I'm not that. But where it does hurt is when you said, hey, I really want your advice. And then you get mad at me for the advice that I give you, when that really shows you only wanted the approval on it. And I would love to be able to say that I'm mature enough now that it doesn't affect me emotionally. And I just go, but to be honest, I have come back and said, so Stephen, you said you wanted my advice, but it sounds like you really just wanted my approval, because you've already made up your mind, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're human, right? And you have feelings as well, and you want people to like you. We all want people, and we all want some form of, we want to be important. We want to belong. And sometimes it's very difficult to sacrifice that. It's to sacrifice being a part of the group, for that piece.
Well, let's, the other part that I want to talk about is, we may be someone who is in this guy's corner, and we may be in someone's corner, but we just may actually be the wrong messenger. I mean, we may, I may not be the person to speak this. Maybe I don't have the relationship with them. Maybe there's something in my past or something that I've done that prohibits me from being able to speak in this area. Or, maybe I don't have the experience. Maybe I may have the knowledge, but I don't have the experience. I kind of shared with you before, hey, giving you the pro tip, I think is what you put it was, I said, hey, listen, I've seen this picture before. I've gone up against this curveball. I know what it looks like. Let me tell you what this curveball looks like. Okay. If I have that experience, okay, now I can speak from, a level of expertise or whatever. But if you don't know that about me, or if I haven't experienced that, it's easy to dismiss the messenger. And, we got to find the right messenger for it as well.
And I think that's where it comes down to the conversation. And if you really are friends, you can have that conversation, and they'll be honest with you as well, saying, Kevin, I appreciate you, but this is what I'm seeing. And then that, as you open up that dialogue, I think you will find a solution somewhere in there, or you will find the teacher or the messenger. But I don't think just because you don't feel as though I might not be the person to do this, I don't think that's a reason to sit on the sidelines. And I know it's incredibly difficult for people, because we don't want to put it all out there.
And I love that you shared before that you said, we've got to be willing to risk the relationship, for that other person. Mm-hmm. All right. Last thing I want to talk about is timing. Okay. And you had your favorite phrase that you shared, your favorite philosophy, when
when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Yeah.
And when you're ready, the teacher will appear.
And I think understanding that is that, if I'm talking to you, In this scenario, you are the student, okay? If I'm coming to you and there's something that I notice, there's a speck in your eye that I'm looking, pointing out, or, it's a relationship or whatever, that if you're not ready to receive it, it doesn't really matter how convincing my vocabulary is, how logical my points are, how I can prove the science of this.
No, and let's look at let's change it off of like relationships and things like that. Let's talk about finances for a second. So, and you speak from a finance background. So if I'm making some poor decisions financially, so if I'm making different investments wrong, things like that, and you come to me and you say, hey, I would do this differently, I would diversify this way, whatever that looks like, and I tell you to pound sand, I tell you, you know what, I'm not ready for this, but you have at least cracked the window a little bit, for me to be approached and more understanding the next time. So as I hit that rock that you told me was going to be there, I might be like, oh, you know what? Kevin told me that this rock was going to be here. I ignored him. I hit the rock. So now I'm a little bit more open possibly to listen the next time as well.
Yeah.
Or it might not even be Kevin. It might be somebody else. Kevin kind of softened me up a little bit, and then the next person comes in and tells me the same thing. I'm probably more likely to receive it.
Wow. That's good. Well, guys, I would just encourage you, I think I've shared this a few times on the podcast. It is so important for us to dig our wells long before we get thirsty. And in digging our wells, it's building that band of brothers. It's finding that cornerman. It's also being a cornerman for other people. I think one of the things I text you also was plus minus equals, so meaning that there needs to be some people that you are a cornerman for. Maybe you are, a step or two further down the road than they are. But there's also the minus where, you have a few people in your sphere that are a step or two beyond you. They're past you a little bit. And then you have your peers that are, on the same page as you. So, I think finding and having your band of brothers, having your cornermen, being able to have the courage as a cornerman, as a band of brother, as someone who is in the foxhole with someone, to have the courage to be able to speak, truth and grace, learning how to communicate gracefully. I remember my dear grandmother, my granny, she would always, tell me, it's not what you say, but it's how you say it. And so just as much as the student must be ready, before the teacher will appear, also the way the teacher communicates is important. The style in which they bring it, we talked about before that if I'm too aggressive and I come over the top too much, then it's gonna be natural for us to defend a relationship, a financial decision, whatever it may be, because we don't want to be made to feel wrong. Okay?
No, yeah, you're absolutely. And my call to action to everybody who's listening would be, I'd look it up. Jimmy Graham was just on an episode with you guys. He was on episode 84. Go check that out, guys. So Jimmy Graham runs a program called Able Shepherd, and he said something that was very interesting. He's like, if you don't have 10 friends that you can call and they can be at your house in 10 minutes, that's a problem.
Yep.
So you need to start developing that band of brothers, developing those friends, and so that you do, you do like make your circle bigger, but it's not just about you, because you might have something to bring to those people as well.
Well, I would tell you what, man, friends, to quote the great rap group from the mid 80s, Houdini, friends, how many of us have them? And I'll tell you, this is a time right now. And I think in the world that we live in, there has never been a more important time to be developing, deepening, encouraging your friends in a world that has become, socially distanced, that communicates more via Instagram than anything else. Now is the time for us to go deeper. And I really believe that the revolution that is going to take place is going to start at home with the fathers. And we're going to be demonstrating that for our kids, because that's what we want our kids to have, is great friends. They're going to walk them through the process as well in the future. So, hey, have a badass day, be a badass dad, and we are out. Hey guys, I wanted to thank you so much for listening to the Badass Dad podcast. We are so excited about what's going on in 2021, and we want to encourage you to connect with us. So you can hit us up on the Facebook or Instagram at BadAssDads _podcast is where you'll find us on Instagram. And if you want to hit me directly, it is KDH at BadAssDads.org. KDH at BadAssDads.org. Man, appreciate you guys. Let's get after it.